Hello, welcome to 15 Minutes of Consulting Best Practices. My name is Maria Isabel Rios, and I'm joined by David A. Phillips. David, welcome back to this space.
It's good to see you again, Maria Isabel. I hope you had a fabulous weekend and fabulous last week.
Likewise. And we're getting ready to get started today. As a reminder, this is a space where we answer your questions aimed at growing and improving the life in your consulting firms and making your firms really work for you. Don't be shy. Post your questions in the comments and in the notes. And we're going to start with a question that was submitted by somebody via writing. Deidre, why don't you get us started with our first question of the day? All right. So Alexandria asked David, and I'm going to put you on the spot since it's been a minute since you've been here. She's rising through the ranks at a consulting firm and new at business development. Congratulations, Alexandria. Where should she focus her efforts in terms of business development?
Okay.
What's your best advice, David?
This one's pretty straightforward. So this is an easy one. If you're new in business development, and we work with a lot of folks who are new and starting their careers, I always say focus 100% on building your network. I mean, that's especially early in your career. And we give the same advice, and we say this to folks. Think of this the same way you think about investing in your retirement, where all the old people like me say, start investing now in your retirement, because if you put in money now, you'll be fine. You'll be much better than folks who are trying to catch up. Same thing applies to business development, only instead of investing in your bank account, you invest in your network. So that's pretty straightforward. That's where you focus when you're new.
All right, I'm going to play David, devil's advocate for a second, David.
Okay.
If I'm Alexandria, I'm probably thinking, got it. Now, how do I do that?
Yeah.
What is your highest and best advice for Alexandria and anyone else who's listening on how to build your network?
Yeah, that's a really fair question, especially if you don't have a network for whatever reason. If because you're young, you're relatively new in your career, or because you've always been inside corporate and didn't create a network, or you've been in a large consulting firm, and you find yourself suddenly in need of a network. So that's really fair. And what I would say is first get interested in people. Right. It's the same as when you're interested in anything. If you're interested, I spent the last few weeks down in Florida and in Palm Beach, and that would be a really good place to be interested in Bentleys. If you're interested in Bentleys, you see a lot down there. But once you become interested in something, you notice it more, right? You see more opportunities. There'd be more opportunities if you were interested in Bentleys to get in them. So get interested in people. And one way to start that process, I think, is to adopt or at least be sympathetic to our definition of wealth, the definition of wealth we use, which is wealth equals relationship strength. If you believe that the more healthy, vibrant, rich relationships you have, the wealthier you are, you're automatically going to get into the process of asking for introductions. You're automatically going to start meeting people just beyond the project team you're on. You're automatically going to stay in touch with people once the project is over, because you're constantly looking at your bank account, right? Your bank account is your relationship net worth. And you're looking at it, you're like, wow, I want to grow my net worth. I want to grow my bank account. Oh, I met this person, I'm going to call them. So it happens a little bit naturally, I think, if your head and your heart are in the right place. Now, that might be unfair, so feel free to push back.
No, I think it's true. And one of the basic principles of what you just shared is that if you focus on relationships, you're not focused on selling. Therefore,
Right.
You can ask for introductions because your approach is not how many projects can I sell to you and how many people can you introduce me to that will sign a project right now, right? Your whole approach is how do you deepen relationships and how do you connect with people, so folks will know that you're true to that as well and will be more open to introduce you to their network. and to people who are interesting and people who also
That's
have
absolutely
ideas
right.
and focus on connection.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And for someone like Alexandria, I think she was, she's young in her career, and so she probably feels less pressure to sell, and so she can naturally do that. And for those of you who are listening who are either later or are feeling that pressure, channel your inner Alexandria, and put yourself in that position where you don't feel pressured to sell. Because being pressured to sell will steer you in the wrong direction. Now, I'm really curious if folks who are listening, either live right now or in the replay, to feedback whether that makes sense or not, or where they've struggled, or whether you need more direction or not. I think that would be interesting.
Great discussion to have. And also
Okay.
folks have different experiences of how they've gone about building their own network, which always are a contribution and an add-on for
I agree. I agree. John says truth. All right, we'll go with that, John. Perfect. All right. Thank you for putting me on the spot immediately. I will turn about as fair play. So whatever Deidre has next is for you. Deidre, what do we have?
All
It's a
right.
long one. All right. It's from Karen. One of our established clients called and said, "We want to work with you and we want the delivery by the end of next month." That's only 6 weeks. And these projects typically take 10 to 12 weeks. This is the third time they've requested it. Wow. Okay. What's the best way to handle it? And thanks, Doc, for your comment too.
All right. First,
All right.
congratulations.
So they're asking for something really rapid timing. They've asked multiple
times, right? So, congratulations, Karen. You've obviously built a relationship with your client where they value the work that you are bringing in. And this conversation is really about how do you manage the timeline and the repeated offenses on rush requests, right? So a couple of things come to mind. First, make sure you're speaking with the decision makers, right? So top to top, because this is a really hard conversation and a really hard reframe to have if the person you're speaking with about the timeline cannot make a decision about it on your client side. So make sure you're speaking with folks who have the ability to actually have a conversation about this with you. And the second element that comes to mind is ask them to help solve the problem with you. And how does that look like, right? So you can say, and it's very legitimate to say, okay, look, this is not the first time this has happened in our relationship. Get it? How do we walk it backwards? You know, this project takes us 10 to 12 weeks. I hear you saying you need it in 6 weeks. First, let's understand the timeline. And two, which pieces can we work on? I think ultimately, if there are no trade-offs, if there's nothing that can be worked, projects with compressed timelines demand higher fees, right? Because presumably you are directing resources from elsewhere in your delivery to make this timeline happen. So it's a great idea to present alternatives, particularly to repeat offenders, showing them what the fees for a compressed timeline will look like. So one of your alternatives in the future could be, look, you recurrently say you need this done in 6 weeks or in whatever the timeline is. These are the fees to do this in 6 weeks. And that usually gets folks thinking about where they actually need it, how much of a rush they need, and where that's something they're willing to pay for. David, what do you think? Not an easy situation for Karen.
No, it's not interesting. It's something else. So first of all, I really like your answer, and I like you're teaching something we preach to our clients all the time, which is don't solve a problem that your client can help solve for you, right? Especially a problem that your client is handing you. So I like that. I also really like the idea that less time is higher value, and so fees go up for that. The only thing, so I agree with 100% with what you're saying. The only thing I'm wondering is whether there's an aspect of bad behavior here on the part of the client that needs to be addressed, lest you get into trouble later. I mean, is the client constantly going to be giving things late and asking for things in unrealistic timelines? And if that's the case, so is this a bit of a flag? And therefore you need to be talking with the client about that, saying, hey, look, let's sort this out. What are your suggestions? Exactly what you said. But also, I'm slightly concerned because this is the third time you've come up with this short, sort of short timeline. I'm a little concerned about what this is saying about your approach and how we work. And so maybe we can address the bigger issue. That's the only thing I might layer on top of it.
And another way perhaps of saying that is, can we unlock it further upstream, right? Meaning what happens before this gets to be a conversation between us that makes it so that when it gets here, we only have a really short timeline? Can we unlock a piece, that happened 3-4 weeks ago, that is the piece that creates the need for acceleration? And thank you, John. You're absolutely correct. No is an absolutely valid response.
Absolutely.
Or not now, or not in this element. And John, you're also saying, why do they wait so long to ask for help? Exactly. So that's the piece that we're suggesting. Let's problem solve that together, right?
Yeah. Totally agree with all the comments coming in here. Why did they wait so long to ask for help? And bad prospects make for terrible clients. Get yourself in a position where you can walk away, and increase fees. So totally agree, and love all these comments coming in. Also, there was a comment earlier about John about just when it comes to building a network, just being in action, and totally agree with that. It's one of the reasons we like the 1-1-1 messaging format that we teach. Is it's so easy to be in action with that, and that will help build the network.
Yeah, right. And we also think of business development as a system and not as a unique action. So your 1-1-1 email that you just referenced, David, is a part of a whole, right? Of a whole system where you're creating habits and rituals where you're propelled into action by natural force and not questioning every time, right? You don't need to rethink your energy. You don't need to think about which tools you're going to use. You have your tools readily available. And you have kind of the layout set up so that you can follow and be in action in a way that it's easier for you and more seamless.
Totally agree. All right, we have like 1 minute. Does anybody have a 1-minute question that's out there listening? If you have a 1-minute question, post it and we'll answer it. Otherwise, we'll go with Deidre. I don't know. We're not really capable of answering a question in 1 minute. Deidre?
I certainly can't even almost read a question in 1 minute.
All right. Well, you read it. I'll do my best to answer it.
Okay. So Mike asks, he's attending a conference in April and following your suggestion, planning pre-work and his conference approach. Who should he be targeting for conversations at the conference? Who should be in his top 10?
I'm laughing at the questions coming in. How do we engage you? You reach out to us. Are you having a good day? I'm having a fabulous day because I get to be here with Marisabel and with those of you who are watching. All right. How do you find your top 10 in 20 seconds or less? Look for companies that you want to target, and then who's the representative of that company. Remembering you don't always need to talk to the most senior person. You just need to talk to someone who can either introduce you to a decision maker or who is a decision maker. So first look for companies. And then the other piece I would say is for your top 10 is look for folks who are highly influential or respected or have a tribe of their own. Because those people will help you immeasurably. So hitch your wagon to folks that already have a horse or something like that. There you go. I'll just butcher a metaphor.
All right.
All right. We used up bunches of time. Marisabel, it was fun to be here with you. Those of you who are watching live or on replay, it was fun to be here with you. The couple requests. One, if you haven't read the Irresistible Consultant's Guide to Winning Clients, I would suggest you read that. because we refer to stuff and sometimes it's there. Deidre put up a link here for Monday Live, davidafields.com/Monday Live. Put that in your calendar. Make sure that you connect with Maria Isabel and with me. We want to be connected with you. Subscribe, get the articles. A few people in the last couple of weeks have said, I don't know about the articles, but I like seeing the illustrations. So go for the illustrations. That works fine. And invite someone to come visit with you next time. This is more fun as we have more comments flowing in. But either way, thank you for coming, Maria Isabel. It was fun to be with you. For all of us, we just need to remember that consulting is not about us. It's not about you even. It's about them. It's about clients and prospects. So give them value and give them kindness. And we will see you next week.
We will. And thank you to everyone who contributed to the discussion today with your input and your questions. We very much appreciate it. Bye. Thank you.